Hare Krishna, and welcome to this week's virtual Sunday Feast program here at ISKCON Chicago on behalf of Sri Kishore Kishore and Srila Prabhupada. A big welcome to everybody. Before transitioning to tonight's speaker, His Grace Chaitanya Kishore Prabhu, there are some announcements of some exciting programs that are coming up in the near future. The first is there will be a virtual Bhakti Shastri series starting November 10th. So it's starting November 10th, and there is registration required. The facilitators will be Their Graces Gajendra Moksha Prabhu, Namaruchi Prabhu, and Leela Manjari Mataji. They will be facilitating Bhakti Shastri, systematic study of Bhagavad Gita, Sri Upanishad, Nectar of Instruction, and Nectar of Devotion. So again, November 10th is the start date. Please register by emailing bhaktishastri2019@gmail.com. That information will also be provided in a subsequent email. The other event is coming up very soon, November 7th and 8th. It is a financial planning workshop for devotees. So how do we plan our finances within the framework given to us by Srila Prabhupada so that we can more easily practice our spiritual life in all realms of our pursuits. So registration is also required for that. And again, it's November 7th and 8th. And to register, that will be emailed as well to everybody receiving the list. And if you're not receiving that email, just put a quick note in the chat and we'll get you added. On that note then, I'll turn it over to tonight's speaker, His Grace Chaitanya Kishore Prabhu, who is continuing our Srimad Bhagavatam Brilliant as the Sun series with an overview of second canto, second chapter, and he's titled it, The Best of Everything.
Okay. Thank you so much, Prabhu. I'm going to share my screen. I have a presentation. So let me know if you see it. Okay, maybe I have to. Are you able to see my screen, Prabhu?
Yes.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you. Okay, so I'll start with Mangalacharan and then we'll get into the subject. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Stam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakham Vidam Cha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpati Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya eva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So thank you so much, Yasharan Prabhu, for giving me this opportunity to speak on Bhagavatam overview. Any opportunity where we can leverage either talking about Bhagavatam or hearing about Bhagavatam is the most auspicious opportunity, at least for my own purification. So thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. So before I go over the overview, it is always auspicious to invoke the blessings of the author of Bhagavatam, Vyasadeva. So usually we chant the Om Namo Bhagavate prayers. So please, if you all can chant also. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Chaivo Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Mudire. Nashtapraishu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki Shinmata Swakatha Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtana Hridayantastapadrani Vidanoti Shuhatsatam Krishnaya Vasudevaya Devaki Nandanaya Cha Nandagopakumaraya Govindaya Namo Namaha. Okay. All right. So today's topic is titled The Best of Everything. It's an overview in the series of, of Bhagavatam chapters that we are giving an overview, and which title as Brilliant as the Sun. So we're going to go through the overview of the second canto, second chapter, which is titled as Lord in the Heart by Prabhupada. But I'm going to go through what exactly this things now, how it relates to the topic today. That will also begin. So before I start this, I want to give a quick overview of what has happened so far. As you know, Bhagavatam in the first canto, the sages of Naimisharanya, who are headed by Shaunaka Rishi and others, who are performing a 1,000-year yagya, have assembled there for the benefit of the entire world, knowing how this world is going to, the age of Kali is approaching. So just for the benefit of everyone, they were assembled there to do something good for everybody, right? So at that moment, Sutta Goswami arrives and they gave him the seat of God, because Sutta Goswami was expert in all the Puranas. He was a very expert reciter with a pure heart. He used to recite the Puranas. So he was being asked these questions. So specifically in the first canto, they asked like 6 questions, 6 specific questions the sages asked Sutta Goswami. And in response to that, he narrated the entire first canto, with some history from Mahabharata, talking about the Pandavas, how Parikshit Maharaj was born. Then they diverted to talking about Krishna, where how Krishna is in Hastinapur, how he's leaving Hastinapur, how he's entering Dwarka. Then he talks about Pandavas retiring, and finally at the end of the first canto, he comes with then at the end of the first canto, he talks about how Parikshit Maharaj was cursed by a 5-year-old Brahmana boy called Shringi. When he was hunting out and when he felt very thirsty, he went to an ashram, a place of where the sage Samik Rishi was meditating, and he made a small mistake of putting a dead snake around his neck while he was meditating. And seeing this Shringi, who was he was not very mature, so he cursed this emperor, this king Parikshit Maharaj, a great devotee of the Lord, with a very grave curse. He just he proclaimed that in 7 days this king will die by the bite of a snake bird called Takshak. Now this was a very great loss to the entire world, because king like Parikshit Maharaj who was protecting the Vedic culture, is being cursed for a very small mistake. And Shamik Rishi, who is the father of this little boy, he understood this thing, but yet he had to go and tell the king. So he went and told Parikshit Maharaj, and Parikshit Maharaj, as a true Vaishnava, he didn't react to this, and he just decided to leave everything and sit on the banks of the river Ganga, trying to figure out what should be done at this point of time, when I know in 7 days I'm going to die. Right? At that point, all the sages, of the universe, knowing that this is something, a historical event is going to happen, they all came there, to help Parikshit Maharaj also. And while they were trying to figure out, at that time, Sukadeva Goswami walks into the assembly. He's a 16-year-old boy, wearing no clothes, but unanimously, all the sages agreed that he should take the Vyasasana, the seat, and speak about Krishna or Srimad Bhagavatam. And now, why is that? Because Bhagavatam itself says in the third chapter and the third verse in the first chapter, that when this Srimad Bhagavatam, which is written by Vyasadeva, who was also sitting in the assembly, was written by Vyasadeva, but it was assimilated and realized by Sukadeva Goswami. And when he spoke, it became even more sweeter. Right? So they all agreed that Sukadeva Goswami should take that seat. So then, at the end of that chapter, Parikshit Maharaj is asking 3 relevant questions, specifically to Sukadeva Goswami. What should be done? Right? Because he has only 7 days left. He knows what should be done at this point of time, right? So what he asks is, what is the ultimate duty of everyone, especially of a dying man? What should be heard and chanted and remembered, and what should not be heard, right? So these are the 3 specific questions he asks Sukadeva Goswami. Now, the last question, what should not be heard, was already explained, and it is there in the second canto, first chapter of this particular section of second canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, where he exclusively explains what should not be done. And in this particular chapter, we focus on the first two questions for now. Right? So, what is the duty of a person, or ultimate duty for everyone, and especially for a dying man? And what should be heard and what should be chanted? Yeah. So now, who is a dying man? Everybody is dying. Every moment, as we progress through our life, every moment we are dying. We celebrate our birthdays, but we also know that as we move on in our ages, we are getting closer to death. People don't like to talk much about death, but it's a reality. And when we meditate upon that, we can make some good use of our life here, right? So this is a question which Parikshit Maharaj is asking. What should a dying man do? And especially speaking, everybody's dying. In case of Parikshit Maharaj, he at least got a 7-day notice. In our cases, we may not even get that, right? Or we may get it. But what should be done? In this crisis of Corona, I'm hearing so many people getting, and so many of my close friends and relatives who are getting, this disease. And all of a sudden, their whole life is getting topsy-turvy because of this. Some people, some of their close relatives die all of a sudden, and they're in shock, a lot of grief, cannot process it, right? So because we are so much engrossed in our day-to-day lives that we fail to ask these questions, which are so much core of human existence, right? If we are, so Prabhupada used to stress this a lot, if we are not asking these questions, we are no better than animals, actually. So this is something which Parikshit Maharaj asks. So every moment, everyone is dying, right? So that's a fact of life. But unfortunately, what happens is not many people even ponder upon these questions, right? They don't have enough time or no interest. So that is a very, very unfortunate situation of our today's world. So such a fast-paced world, people don't ponder upon these questions at all. Now, I'll tell you from the scripture, there are some statistics that are given which will tell you how rare the people or group of people are who actually want to know, what is the goal of life, how to achieve it, what should be done, right? So it says in Padma Puran, there is a list of species. It is given. They say there are 8.5 million species in this world and in this universe. And it says the water-based species like the water aquatics, the 0.9 million species of aquatics, plants and trees are 2 million, reptiles are 1.1 million, birds are 1 million, animals are 3 million, and human beings, both civilized and uncivilized, the 0.4 million, 400,000. So we are the minority of the lot, if you see that. Yeah, the human beings are the lowest. So even from the entire 8.5 million species of life existing in this universe, we are only 400,000 species of people, right? Human form of life who has some discrimination, some form of better intelligence, right? We are very, very less as compared to the entire gamut of living entities. Out of them, human beings, they're both all aborigines and civilized. Aborigines are almost like animals. Right now, the scriptures mention that there are four activities that are common to all of these species. That is eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. Right. And if we, as human beings, are engaging in these four activities, eating, sleeping, mating, and defending, in a more sophisticated way, yeah, is that a very good use of the intelligence? That's what is the question that Prabhupada used to repeatedly emphasize. Are we doing justice to what has been given to us? We are higher intelligence, a higher rationale. As per Vedanta Sutra, the first aphorism says "Athartha Brahma Jigyasa," which means now that you have this human form of life, utilize to understand the absolute truth, who we are, why we are here, what is our need. I mean, what is our goal, ultimate goal? Why are we? Why? What should we be doing to achieve that goal? So, out of this, 400,000 species of human beings, they're both aborigines and civilized. Out of that, civilized people are lesser. In the sense, there are aborigines, and then there are civilized people are there. Out of those civilized people who know, who live a very regulated life, following the religion for material benefit, are even fewer, right? Because most of the people who are so-called civilized, they're also living like animals. They don't care for religion, or there are not many people inquisitive too much about piety. And in this day and age today, we see people are losing faith very rapidly in pious activities, and people are doing as they like, whatever their mind tells them to do. So even from there, we are very less people who actually follow some form of religion, which is there in the human life. But most of them do it for material benefit, right? I do some ritual, I get this. In Vedas, there is a whole section of karma kanda. There are a lot of yagyas that are prescribed, and these yagyas basically emphasize, okay, you worship this particular demigod, or you worship that demigod to get certain things. And most people are attracted to that kind of process because it gives some tangible, immediate results, right? Out of that, people who understand the material world is a miserable place are even lesser, right? Who are aspiring to get spiritual perfection. This group of people include the Gyanis, or people who are trying to speculate. Okay, what is beyond this material world? Philosophers. They try to understand. Okay, these things that are going on normally are very, very mundane. Is there something higher? Yeah. So there are very few people who are actually in that quest of understanding the truth. And out of those, very, very, very few people actually know Krishna in truth. Many people know Krishna as a historical figure. Many people know Krishna as Supreme Lord. Many people know Krishna as a boy from Vrindavan, like that. But very, very few people actually know the actual position of Krishna in truth. These are the pure devotees we are talking about. Right? And all these statistics is not that I made it up. This is a reference from which Krishna himself is saying, Manushanam Sahasreshu, it says, from out of thousands of among men, Kaschid Yatati Siddhaye, very few endeavor for perfection. Talking about this group of people here, very few. And Yatadam Api Siddhanam, out of these few people, Kaschin Mamveti Tattvata, very few actually know me in truth. Right? So this is what we are talking about. At least we have a group of people on this call which are in this sphere who are trying to understand what spiritual perfection means, how to achieve it. So we are very, very fortunate to be in touch with such a process, such a group who are inquisitive. And when we do this together, this inquisitiveness or this inquiry, it helps us a lot. So why not make the best use of the bad bargain? Yeah, this is what we should be doing. We got this human form of life, a higher form of life, good intelligence. Why not use this intelligence to inquire about the higher truths of life, right? Now it's a bad bargain because for a soul who is transcendental to this material world, a soul is free from this material atmosphere, who is eternal, who is full of bliss and full of knowledge, as per Bhagavad Gita. To be trapped in this material world with so many rules and regulations and restrictions is a bad bargain, no doubt about that. But in that bad bargain, we have a form, a human form, because of our past karma and good activities. We got a form, a human form, which has the capability, which has the instruments to inquire deeper into these subject matters, right? So why not use it for the best use, best bargain? So let us find the best means by which we can reach to this ultimate goal of knowing the Supreme Lord in truth, right? That is why the topic is best of everything. So we will, in this chapter, in the second canto of second chapter, Sukadeva Goswami is doing a quick, he's coming to a conclusion and is giving us a solution to what is the best means of achieving this goal, right? Uh, so this is Bhagavatam solution. I'm right away giving you the solution from the scriptures itself, and this is the second last verse of this chapter. It says that Tasmat Sarvatmana Rajan Harer Sarvatra Sarvada Srotavyakittavyasya cha Smratavayo Bhagavanandana. So we have heard this many times, right? To remember, to hear, and glorify the Supreme Lord, Personality of Godhead, always and everywhere. Nityam Bhagavad Sevaya, always remembering, always glorifying, and always, talking about the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is what one should do. That is the solution. That is what Sukadeva Goswami is giving us right away. This is the best method to achieve the goal. But are we convinced? Are we convinced of this solution? Most, at least for me, there are still some doubts. Yeah. But if you are convinced, then that's very good. Let's practice Krishna consciousness with great urgency, because we don't know when our last moment, last breath will be. So why not make it an urgency? Like make it a priority in our life. The practice of Krishna consciousness with more vigor, with more intensity, right? Prabhupada used to say, Krishna consciousness is simple for simple-minded, and it's complex for people who have a complex thinking process, have the complex, who are complex basically, who are difficult. So you can decide which category we are in. If we are not convinced, why? Because there may be some reasons that we may think it is too simple. Just chanting and glorifying the Lord can get me to that destination. Why not? Others are not following. So we have so many doubts. We may not have complete faith in the process, and that is possible. So what should we do? Let's try to understand, the significance. Because Sukadeva Goswami is saying he is a accomplished sage who has understood. He was already Brahman realized, and now he is giving the solution. Then why not try to understand it? Yeah, how this process of bhakti or this process of Krishna consciousness is going to help us in comparison to what is there in the other processes, right? So, and then practice Krishna consciousness with urgency once we understand this thoroughly, right? So, but from Sukadeva Goswami's perspective, he is in this chapter establishes Krishna consciousness or Bhakti Yoga as the supreme over all other processes of bhakti. Now, why is he doing that, right? Because you see, when Parikshit Maharaj was cursed, all the sages came there, and Sukadeva Goswami was given the Vyasasana to speak on. Now, when he looked around, he saw there are a lot of different kind of sages, different mix of sages there, right? And all of them were not Bhakti yogis. There were Ashtanga yogis who believed in meditating on the super soul. There were karma yogis, who believed in work, who believed in doing Vedic rituals, right, and sacrifices, right. And there were Jnana yogis who believed in speculating on impersonal Brahman. So there were many kind of people that they were demigod worshippers who would do yagyas for their demigods. So now, as a speaker, he was trying to bring everybody to the same page, right? He was trying to bring everybody to the same page to explain them what he's going to speak about, right? And also showing them, because some people, when this question was asked by Parikshit Maharaj, what should one be doing to achieve the ultimate goal? What is the duty of a dying man? Some may think, you should perform yagyas, or maybe you should do like philosophical speculation, or you should demigod worship. So some sages might have that kind of an opinion. So he's trying to establish the supremacy of the process of Bhakti Yoga through various means and authoritative statements from the scriptures. I'll just give you a quick overview of the chapter, the breakdown of how this chapter is laid down. Now, Canto 2 itself is kind of has three main parts. The first three chapters of the Canto 2 emphasize the superiority of bhakti, the first, second, and third. And the part B, or the chapters 4 to 7, emphasize these are the parts of Srimad Bhagavatam, which is creation and secondary, primary creation, secondary creation. So there are 10 topics that are discussed in Srimad Bhagavatam, which we will see in the chapter 2.10. But these are the two parts of that 10 topics that described in Srimad Bhagavatam. So primary creation, that is Sarga, and Visarga. Visarga means secondary creation. And then from chapters 8 to 10 describe Chatushlokhi Bhagavatam, which is the 4 verses that Lord spoke to Brahma, and then Vasudev expanded on that, and then it became 18,000 verses based, for our better understanding. But basically, originally the seed was given by Lord by Krishna in these 4 verses. This is called Chatushlokhi. This chapter specifically, second chapter, is titled as Lord in the Heart, because this chapter is more emphasizes on the process of Ashtanga Yoga and how Ashtanga Yoga. So Sukadeva Goswami is trying to prove that how bhakti is superior to Ashtanga Yoga. And in the next chapter, that is third chapter, he will talk about more about Jnana Yoga and the demigod worshippers. So that is what the flow is. And in this chapter, this is the breakdown. And the first 7 verses talk about rejection of karma kanda, so the ritualistic ceremonies that should be performed. That is performed in the Vedic tradition. The 8 to 12 verses talk about the description of the super soul. It gives a very beautiful description of how the Lord looks, right? And people say you want to see God, but when you read this description, you will see the beauty of the Lord. It has been described very, very nicely for our meditation. And then the object of the meditation of yogis, what should the yogis be meditating on? Practice and process. Now that this from verses 15 to 32 is very technical. It talks about what the Ashtanga yogis actually do, how do they practice, what is the process of leaving this body, and how they attain liberation. It's very technical. We'll not go much deep into that. We'll just touch upon it. And then comes the final conclusion of this chapter, where Sukadeva Goswami presents that sadhana bhakti is the best path, right? So this is where bhakti or Krishna consciousness is superior to fruitive work or Ashtanga Yoga. This is the chapter which will give you that answer. So now, what is fruitive work, right? Karma kanda, as they say. The fruitive work means to work like everybody does, right? We work for certain material benefits. So if our life is only meant for that purposes, then it is very temporary. In the sense, it is like if you are renting a house, and as soon as you rent the house, you become, you go into the house and you think this is my own house, and you spend so much of energy, so much of time to decorate your house, to make it very beautiful, bring all the things that you want to see in your house, and you spend so much of energy. But at the end of the lease, your landlord comes and says, okay, it's time to vacate. Then all that effort that you put is gone. It's just the happiness that you got is temporary, and at the end you have to anyway vacate it out, right? Similarly, the soul which is inhabiting this body has to give up this body at one point. So all the karmakandic processes that we do, fruitive work, which means working so hard to accumulate money and becoming so much anxious, not taking good care of your health, leaving all the processes. So that kind of work may not, it is temporary, right? Does not solve the problems of your life, does not give you the ultimate goal that you're looking for. As you see in the picture, this guy is dreaming about vacation and a big house and a car. So if you just keep daydreaming like this and put all our energy in that, then we miss the point. This is what is happening today. People are so much engrossed in these activities that they fail to ask those questions, those important questions of life, and fail to understand what is the purpose of our human life, right? So why work for something that is temporary and fleeting? We should work, definitely. We need to work, and Krishna explains this very clearly in Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna, that giving up work is not the solution. We have to work, but work for maintaining body and soul together. Why? Work as much as is required. Work for your needs, not for your wants, right? So that you can maintain yourself in a healthy condition, in a nice condition, and save time for Krishna consciousness. Save time for the main things, or the purpose for which you are there in this human life, for spiritual emancipation, for understanding the higher truths, right? So if you can save that time, then that will help. That will help even in this world and even after that, right? So that is why karma kanda process, or the rituals, the Vedic rituals, the Vedas has a lot of details, and you will see that in the third chapter of this canto. You will see that how there are many processes, there are many yagyas that are recommended to different demigods, which will basically culminate in something, you getting something. Like if you want a good partner in your life, then worship Lord Shiva or Parvati, and then, or if you want good knowledge, worship Saraswati, like that. So there are many processes like that. However, they will only give temporary results, because people who are giving you is also temporary. The demigods are temporary. So that's why waste time? So the principle one that we can understand what Sukadeva Goswami is trying to convey is live simply, right? And he goes to the extent, if you look at the verses 4 to 5, he explains in a very graphic manner, very it's for the renounced order of life. Actually, he says, why do you need cots and beds, if you have the earth to sleep on? Why do you need pillows? Use your arms to sleep on. Why should waste your time in making pillows? Why should you waste your time in the utensils? Use the palm of your hands to eat or drink water. Why do you need clothing? Just wear the tree barks and or any torn cloth on the roads. Yeah. Why do you need any food? You just take the fruits from the tree. They are charitable. They'll give you fruits. And water, drink it from the rivers. And you can live in mountain caves. You don't need to build big houses and waste your time there. Yeah. And why should you go and flatter other people? Why don't you have trust in the Lord, who, if you surrender to him, he'll take care of you? Now, this is an extreme case. This is a person who is completely liberated. He has nothing to do with this world, in a very high state of consciousness. He's telling this thing. But we can take the principles. We probably, it's very far off for us to think like that. But the idea is to live simply for a higher purpose, for a higher thinking. This is the first principle. So if you follow this principle in every action that we do, we will be able to save time for the important questions, to solve important, to engage ourselves in the process of Krishna consciousness, right? So this particular verse, this particular section from second to third, 7 verse, Sukadeva Goswami is emphasizing that karma kanda process is temporary, so don't engage too much into it. Live simply. Then he goes into the next section. The next section says, gives a description of the super soul within our heart. Now, everybody knows from Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavatam mentions that Krishna is residing as super soul, as Lord Vishnu's as the Chirutakshaya Vishnu within our own hearts, right? And this is some painting of the Lord, which shows based on the description of Srimad Bhagavatam, which kind of gives an idea of how the Lord looks. Of course, the realization is different, however. It's a very good depiction. So now this section explains, gives a description of Supreme Personality of Godhead as a person, because there were many other yogis in the or transcendentalists within the assembly who are attracted to impersonal effulgence of the Lord, right? So they had a vision that Lord is an impersonal entity. All the personality that we see is going to be destroyed after death. So we should merge in the impersonal form. And he has no legs, he has no eyes, no hands. He is an impersonal form. But Sukadeva Goswami is trying to emphasize that Supreme Lord is a person, right? And because he's a person, you can realize him and have a devotional relation with him. Right? That's where he comes to at the end. Now, the reason why he emphasizes, he gives a lot of description about the form of the Lord. Yeah, he gives a lot of description about the form of the Lord. He gives a very, very vivid and very clear descriptions. He says that Lord, as a super soul, resides within the area of the heart. He is 8 inches long, has 4 hands, holds shankha, chakra, or conch shell, a disc, a club, and a lotus flower. And he's basically wearing a yellow dhoti. He has he has a kaustuba gel in his around his neck. He has very beautiful earrings. If we meditate on these verses, you can picture the form of the Lord in your mind. But this is the meditation of a yogi, a person who is doing Ashtanga yoga, as explained by Krishna in the 6th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, who is doing, or what we see, Ashtanga yoga is doing pranayam and all these other things. For those advanced yogis, the object of meditation is the super soul, who has a form. Yeah. And for the neophytes who cannot meditate on that object, Sukdev Goswami already explained about the Virat form, or the universal form, which was explained in the 1st chapter of this canto. Now, he also explains how one should meditate on the Supreme Lord. And this is applicable even when we come into the temple and take darshan of the deities. How should we take the darshan of the deities? He said one should not go directly and look at the face of the Lord. Because, to look at the face of the Lord, we need to have purification. Then we will be attracted by his face. So he says, first, a person who has a lot of material desires is supposed to have or meditate on the lotus feet of the Lord. That's how you start. Then slowly you go up to his waist, to his chest, and then to his beautiful face. Right? That is the process of taking darshan. Now, in Prabhupada in the purport explains that Srimad Bhagavatam is also a literary incarnation of God. So he is basically that is also a deity. So the way you should study Srimad Bhagavatam is like taking darshan, right? The studying of Srimad Bhagavatam should not start from the 10th canto, which is compared to be the face of the Lord, where there are very beautiful pastimes of the Supreme Lord, right? Because you may misunderstand those pastimes unless you understand who the Lord is. As Krishna mentioned, very few people know him in Tattva. Tattva means in truth, who the Supreme Lord is. You may see his pastimes and consider it to be mundane and then misunderstand him. So what Krishna tells us is, Prabhupada is telling us, is to go very systematically. Go from 1st canto, read 1st canto, 2nd canto, 3rd canto, first 9 cantos. Once you read first 9 cantos, our hearts are purified. We become self-realized, and then we will be able to relish the pastimes of the 10th canto. We'll be able to relish the face of the Lord, right? So that is the process. So that is where Prabhupada says meditation on the feet is required. So principle 2 is meditation should be on the super soul, not something impersonal, right? And the super soul is a person. And then in the next verses, which is, I said, very technical verses, I'll just go very briefly on this one. This is a yogi, picture of a yogi who is meditating on the super soul. Now, this process which he is practicing is called Ashtanga Yoga, right? There are 8 levels of Ashtanga Yoga, 8 processes that one has to follow to do Ashtanga Yoga. Now, what we hear and see today in the world called of yoga is a semblance, or it looks like Ashtanga Yoga. It is not, because the Ashtanga Yoga process consists of 8 levels. It's called Yama, Niyama, Asana, Pranayam, Pratyahar, Dhyan, Dharana, and Samadhi. Okay. Yama means to do certain things, like sitting in the posture, meditating. And Niyama means to give up certain things, give up sitting, give up very crowded places, be alone, give up sense gratification, no more living with the family, like that. Asana means practicing bodily postures, like he's doing over there. And pranayam means exercise, breathing exercises to control the breath, the air of your life, life air. Pratyahar means to restrain your senses, to control your senses completely. Dhyan means to concentrate or focus or meditate on the Supreme Lord within our hearts. And Dharana means to hold or continuously meditate on the Lord. And Samadhi means to attain trance. That is the final stage. So these are the 8 levels of yoga, which takes a lot of time, right? This was possible in other yugas because the purity was more, the environment was such. Nowadays, if I sit even for a moment, I start recalling all my work that I'm spending in my office. So it's not possible in this day and age to do Ashtanga yoga is very, very difficult. So the problem with Ashtanga yoga, as mentioned, is that it is very time consuming, difficult, especially for this age of Kali, where the disturbance is too much. Right now, in one of the verses in the end of Bhagavatam, um, Sukdev Goswami says, Kalel dosha nidhi rajan. He says this age of Kali is full of dosha. Dosha means faults. Kalel dosha nidhi. Nidhi means ocean, ocean of faults. Dosha means faults and ocean of faults. Nidhi means ocean. So it is not just a drop of fault, it's an ocean of faults. Lot of faults. There's a lot of disturbance, a lot of things that you cannot control. So Kaler dosha nidhi rajan asti eko mahan guna. He says only there is one mahan guna, great quality of this age. Kirtanadeva Krishnasya. So one who performs kirtan of Lord Krishna, Mukta Sangha Parambraje. One will be liberated. One will get the ultimate goal of life. That is his final conclusion after reciting the 11 cantos. He comes to this verse where he says that this age of Kali is very disturbing. You cannot practice all these other processes. And even Arjun kind of testifies to this in the 6th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. He says, Krishna, you're explaining all this dhyana yoga process, but for me, it's very difficult. Now, it was difficult for him 5,000 years ago when he was in a different yuga, in Dwapar Yuga. And now, what to think of us? We are way, way, way lower than what he had. The qualifications Arjuna had was far better than what we have. He had more life, he had more duration of life, he had more purity, he had more facilities to perform that kind of yoga. But he is saying that it is difficult for me. There's no question for us to practice this in this age. Very difficult. So he points this out. Sukdev Goswami points this out. So, and because specifically for Parikshit Maharaj, who has only 7 days, this is not possible. Then he comes to the last section, 33-37, where sadhana bhakti is the best of all paths. This is what Sukdev Goswami is recommending, right? And what is sadhana bhakti? Sadhana bhakti means devotional service, the service by following certain rules and regulations, right? It is not spontaneous because we don't have that love for Krishna as of now. So we go through different stages. Rupa Goswami beautifully explains in Nectar of Devotion. Ado Shraddha, Tadha Sadhu Sangha, Tadha Bhajana Kriya. He says, first have some faith, then meet the devotees, engage with some service, like hearing about Lord, doing some services in the temple, or some of the services, chanting the holy names. You can regularly hear Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, or read them. There's so many books available. And we can engage in some practical service within the temple like that, or take darshan of the Lord. That is also service, to come to the temple, engage in kirtan. All these are services. So once we start with that service and we become firm in those services, then our faith increases and then we can achieve. And it is a very rapid process, rapid as compared to other processes of Ashtanga yoga, Karma yoga and other things, Karma Kanda and other things. But for us, that also looks very difficult. But this is the easiest path and the best of all paths. Why? This is the opinion of Sukdev Goswami. He says it's most auspicious path. Why is it most auspicious? This is the verdict of Lord Brahma. He says sadhana bhakti leads to attraction for Lord Krishna. Yeah, it develops love for the Lord very quickly. And this is also given in this section. It says that Lord Brahma, he was the first person to hear the Vedic literature. It's not coming for somebody who has never read Vedas. We see Lord Brahma was the first person to understand the Vedas, and he read it 3 times. After reading 3 times, he's coming to this conclusion that after reading the entire Veda for 3 times, I now understand that sadhana bhakti or bhakti, devotional service, is the best path, and that will lead to attraction of the Lord Krishna, and that will give us prema, or love for God, which is our ultimate goal. Right now, in this particular section, one may ask, okay, I'm supposed to develop prema, but how do I perceive the Lord within my heart? who is my object of prema. So Prabhupada mentions a very detailed purport of the verse of 35th of this chapter is very, very detailed purport of how one can perceive the Lord, right? One example he gives is, first, to perceive the Lord, we need to perceive ourselves as who we are, right? If we say that we are this body, with this 5 elements, then that is not true, because Bhagavad Gita is what Bhagavad Gita is telling you, that you're not this body, you're the soul. So first, let us realize who we are. And when we realize we are the part of the Supreme Lord, the spiritual sparks of the Supreme Lord, then we can attempt to perceive the Supreme Lord also. Okay. So how do we realize we are? So he says we need some little intelligence, some discrimination, some intelligence to understand this. How? So theoretically, when we apply our intelligence, little bit of introspection, we can see when we talk in normal terms also, this is my hand, this is my head, this is my body. So who is that who is that me whom I'm referring to? That me is the soul. Yeah, me, I. This is my hand, which means I am separate from my hand, from my body, from my head. So basically, that soul is to be identified. So that soul is a spiritual spark of the Lord. So if you understand that theoretically, and then we engage in some practical service, as mentioned before, if we engage in this process of sadhana bhakti with little bit of service attitude to start with, then by mercy of the Lord, yes, this is the main element, the mercy of the Lord. Mercy of the Lord will flow when he sees the sincerity by which we are practicing. Right? And that flows through the devotees, from pure devotees. So when we engage in service with and to the devotees, pure devotees of the Lord, the mercy of the Lord flows. And then with that mercy, the revelation will come. We will be able to understand and perceive the presence of the Lord in our daily lives. In fact, in many of the incidences that you'll see in the world, we will perceive the presence of the Lord. Right? So this is what sadhana bhakti, this is what Sukdev Goswami is recommending as the best process from the entire lot, the best of everything. The fourth principle is sadhana bhakti is practical and best of all paths. Especially for this age, it is easy and it is happy process. If you see in the 9th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna again mentions this process is supposed to be susukham, susukham and pratyaksha bhagavam, which means it's supposed to give you a very tangible realization when you practice this. And susukham means it's a happy process. It does not have to have so many rules and regulations. You don't have to give up anything. You just have to engage everything in the service of the Lord. So that art has to be learned. And when we engage in sadhana bhakti with sincerity, with urgency, as we know, as we mentioned before, urgency is very important. It's an emergency. It's not a leniency. We cannot be very slack about it. So if we practice this process with urgency, then we will be able to relish this process very soon. So that is the best of all paths, best of everything, right? And the last verse of this chapter, the 37th verse, talks about it's kind of a falashruti, right? Like what Sukdev Goswami is giving a hope, a guarantee as to what happens when one engages in this process of hearing, chanting, glorifying, and practical service to the Supreme Lord. So he says, pibanti ye bhagavata atmana satam katamritam sarva puteshu samvratam punanti te vishaya vidusitashayam vajanti tacharana saroruhantikam. Those who drink through oral reception, fully filled with nectar and message of Lord Krishna, the beloved of the devotees, purify the polluted aim of life known as material enjoyment, and thus go back to Godhead, to the lotus feet of Him, the personality of Godhead. So when there are 9 processes of Bhakti Yoga: Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam. So Shravanam is the first and foremost of them. Listening, hearing, assimilating, and try to apply in our lives. When we say listening, it should not be like listening from here and taking out from there, like we do most of the news. That's not what we should be doing. Listening is to internalize Actual hearing means when the message goes into our system, we hold it. We hold it in our heart and practice it. That is real listening. And when that message goes in, what happens? When that message goes into the heart, then as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, Chetodarpanam Arjanam, says, the heart is cleansed of all the dirty things because the name of Lord is purifying and it cleans our heart. And once we have a clean heart, then our aim goal is clear. We can see what should we be pursuing in this human form of life. We don't hanker for material enjoyment anymore, and then that makes our road or our path clear to go back home, back to God at the lotus feet of the Lord. So that is the guarantee that Sukdev Goswami is giving an opportunity. So in summary, sadhana bhakti is best, at least for us, and in this age is the best of all processes, of all paths that we were discussed. Karma kanda, the principal one, is fruitive work, is temporary in nature. We should work for live simply, save time for Krishna consciousness, meditate on to meditate and the form of the Lord, and also by practice of sadhana bhakti. Living simply will help us to attain the goal of our life. Super soul is not impersonal, the personal form of the Lord, and meditation on the personality of Godhead should be from his feet to his face. This is the way we take darshan of the deities also. Very important to read and understand and assimilate Bhagavatam in a correct way, because if we go in a correct sequence, we can realize the potency of Bhagavatam, and our hearts will be clean. And one thing I remember out of this is, the second verse of Bhagavatam mentions that this particular Bhagavatam, this Srimad Bhagavatam, can be relished by people who are non-envious. It says Nirmat Saranam Sadam. It is said that it could be relished by people who are non-envious. But for us, or for at least me, who has so much of envy, we have to go through this process, read the purports, so our hearts can be cleansed, right? The Bhagavatam is such a beautiful thing. It can be relished by the Nirmat Saranam or the non-envious, but people who are not that stage, they can still read Bhagavatam and it will cleanse our hearts so we can become non-envious, right? So that is where we need to go through this process, as recommended by Sukdev Goswami himself. You should first, and as Prabhupada mentions, the Bhagavatam should be read with systematically from the beginning to the end. Just not jump or start reading from middle parts. That is also good, but if you want to really get the benefit, take the darshan from the feet, cleanse yourself, and then go into the higher topics of Bhagavatam. Right? And then Ashtanga Yoga is a difficult path, very difficult to control the mind through these different processes of yam, niyama, asana, dharana, pranayam. In these days, especially with so much of disturbance, mind cannot be controlled so easily. It's a difficult process. So practice of sadhana bhakti is more conducive. And the fourth principle is sadhana bhakti is best of all. It leads to attraction of Krishna. One must hear and chant the glories of the Lord always and develop the faith. That is recommended by Sukdev Goswami in this chapter. So, so that's all I had for today. So hopefully we can all assimilate this message of sadhana bhakti as being the best of the paths and very relevant for our times and our lives, and practice it with great urgency. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Chaitanya Kishore Prabhu. There's a couple of things, looks like. First of all, really nice presentation. Just one thing that you said that really stuck out was when you were explaining Bhakti Yoga as a very practical and happy process.
Right.
And I just wanted to ask, or that implies that everything that doesn't seem practical or doesn't seem happy, I'm guessing that's an indication of improper or incomplete understanding.
or yes, or it's not. It is a happy process, but it is. Krishna mentions that you still have to practice it, right? Keep practicing it. So at one point, you will definitely realize that, and maybe it is because of our conditioning also. Many times our conditioning comes in between, and when we don't apply the principles in a proper way, we may not get the result of what we are looking for. But in general, if you see the process itself that Prabhupada gave us, what are we doing? We are doing three things. We are eating prasadam very nicely. We are dancing. Everybody likes to dance. We are singing. Yeah. And we have some rules and regulations. Yes, for sure. But we are associating with nice people, like-minded people. So, and deity worship, it's such a wonderful process. And when we compare this with others, it is the best process. No, for sure.
Right, and there's a comment by Shruti Priyamataji who writes, "It is amazing to me how the process of realization of the supreme truth through Shravanam/hearing is foolproof since time immemorial. Arjuna hearing from Krishna himself, then Parikshit Maharaj, then Shukadev Goswami."
That is very true. Very powerful.
All right, and she also follows up with a very nice presentation, easy to follow explanation, and touched on all the essential topics. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much for your encouragement, Mataji.
And then there's also a question, is it okay to worship the banyan tree itself?
Banyan tree? I don't know. I don't know what is that in context to. I mean, I'm not sure. There was no well, I think there is some process that is followed, and I'm not very much conversant with it. But the banyan tree may have some. I'm not very much aware of that. It's probably in the Karma Kanda area of the Vedas. But I will have to look into that and let you know. But who's asking this question, bro? Sorry.
Oh, it's in the chat.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So as per Bhakti Yoga is concerned, it's easy to just do chanting. But if there is something which that may require some more, consulting or advice, if you want to really do what you're talking about.
Okay. And I think that's all I'm seeing. So if you wanted a concluding statement, otherwise we'll conclude the Sunday feast.
No, I think thank you so much, Prabhu. I mean, I'm really much, as I already mentioned to you, I'm very much excited when it comes to opportunity to hearing or talking about Bhagavatam. It's a very beautiful literature, as I mentioned, even though we may not be very pure, but if we continue hearing and reciting or even discussing about Bhagavatam, so many beautiful things in Bhagavatam which can clear our misconceptions and purify our hearts. So I would request everyone to please, if they don't have a set or they don't, they haven't touched Bhagavatam yet, they should try to do that. It's wonderful literature. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thus ends the Sunday feast. Thank you everyone for joining us. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Next week.